So I'm here in Savannah, Georgia, and this is the location of opening scene for the movie Forrest Gump. You'll probably remember the feather. They show the steeple on this church that's right here. The feathers, they kind of shoot it from the aerial, like an aerial view, but the feather starts to kind of float and drift as it starts making its way down through the little town here, this little square here in Savannah. But that steeple in the church is very recognizable in that scene. It kind of floats down on its way down to the bench that Forrest is in. I think it might come down by the street, maybe like a bus or a car kind of like makes it flutter. You can see this portion of the church here, but the actual bench in the movie was right here. It was right here with where these plants are. So this is where the slab would have been with the bench on it. This is called Chippewa Square. I'll go around to the front. And then of course when he's sitting on the bench, talking to the other people waiting for the bus, you can clearly see the statue in the background, as well as the building here and here. But this is called Chippewa Square, as I mentioned, as a sign shows. This is where the bench would have been. They removed the bench. It's now in like a visitor center museum here in Savannah. But this is the site where the bench once stood for the movie Forrest Gump in that opening scene. And of course they show it a few other times. But this is a really beautiful park. I'm going to swing back around and show you. They don't really ever show the bench from the way I'm about to shoot, but this would have been the view that they would have had sitting at the bench. And this is Bull Street right here. So if you go north and south on Bull Street, if I go straight ahead, I'll run into multiple parks like I'm showing you. And if you swing back around to this way, another one. So Bull Street continues on, but it keeps crossing. When you run it north and south, it keeps crossing into these beautiful parks like this. So very, very cool street, very cool city. And I'll loop back around here and show you. And actually the flow of traffic from the movie was, this is a one-way street and it comes this way. So in the movie, they actually reversed the traffic, so the bus would have pulled right up here in front of where the bench once stood. All right, I'm here in Yemassee, South Carolina. It's the driveway and bus stop location used for Forrest Gump's boarding house, where him and his mom live. It's just gorgeous here. I mean, it's so beautiful. So let me back out here. I'll show you up the road. Now in the movie, they covered the road here with dirt to make it look like it was older. There's a bridge that's right here, and I think a tractor was coming down the road. There would have been a tree stump that was out here. So they show the bus always would pull up here, and this is where Forrest and eventually little Forrest would catch the bus right here. And it's pretty much shot right where I'm standing is the way that they showed that opening scene of from here with a tractor coming down the road. Forrest and his mama waiting for the bus. And this is also the view you get when Jenny and Forrest are walking down this road to his house. And it's also where Forrest is running. This road right here in front of me is where Forrest is running with his magic legs, when the braces break off and he goes running across the field that's up here to the left. Now I'm going to zoom in best I can. Straight down there is the road. These oak trees are just beautiful. I mean, they make like they're live oaks. They have the Spanish moss, and they make a beautiful canopy all the way down the drive. The house that was built for the movie is no longer there. It would have literally been, you could have seen it right where I'm pointing. There's actually the top of some sort of building that was there. Unfortunately, the house was, it wasn't built to code, so they tore it down right after filming. So it was used, and as soon as filming was done, that was the end of the house. They had to tear it down. The scene where the truck is chasing Forrest and the boys are throwing rocks at him, the braces would have like broken off his legs here, and he would have ran right out into that field over there. But I've been to this location before. I just wanted to stop and see it again. As I mentioned, definitely one of my favorites, all-time favorite movies. It's definitely one of my favorite locations. I would love to go up onto the land. It is private property. I'm going to respect that. The house isn't there any longer. I would like to see where the house once stood, but from what I understand, they've had a lot of people who have come here over the years, and I don't want to cause trouble. I'm just here. I'm thankful that I could come to the site, shoot what I can show you from here, and enjoy it all over again by coming back here. I'll step back and swing back around. So this again is the filming location for Forrest Gump, the driveway and bus stop scene. This tree is the tree from the movie Forrest Gump. Now, I have been to a lot of movie locations. I've shot all over the country, rural and city, and this very likely takes the cake as the coolest movie location I have ever found in all the years I've been doing this. I'm almost speechless because this tree is in such a remote area, and I've never seen a video where anybody's ever gone out and found it. I've seen videos where people think they found it in incorrect locations, but the fact that I found it here, it blows my mind. It's absolutely stunning. And when I say it's in a remote area, I'm really not exaggerating. I mean, it's beautiful. It's just breathtaking. So the limb that extends out here is the one that you see Forrest and Jenny sitting on. You get a shot of Forrest dangling from up above on this one. It's just beautiful. It's a live oak. That's a species. It has all the Spanish moss coming down from it. It's just breathtaking. Fortunately, it looks like some of these lower limbs aren't in the best of shape now, but as I said, it's just absolutely gorgeous. I'm kind of shell-shocked that I found this. So if I remember correctly, in the movie, I think Jenny's grave would have been right over in here somewhere. So in the movie, this is obviously a tree that they had visited and spent time in and around, and then when she died, she was buried out here. And then of course Forrest and little Forrest come and visit her grave, and little Forrest left her. Actually, I think Forrest just went and took a letter from little. But I'm just going to take some pictures and enjoy this this spot. Just really can't believe I found this. It took a lot of work and research to figure out exactly where this was, but oh man, was it worth it. I'm a huge fan of finding movie locations. To me, it's like a scavenger hunt, and I love it. I love finding locations for movies that I really enjoy, seeing them, and there's something tangible about visiting them and sort of connecting with the spots that they used. I'm a huge fan of the movie The Shawshank Redemption. There was an oak tree that was used in the Shawshank Redemption. I'm from Ohio. It's in central Ohio is where that was shot and where that tree stood. I visited that tree, thought it was so cool. Unfortunately, a storm took it down and it's no longer there. Between the Shawshank tree and the Forrest Gump tree, they're both ones that I wanted to go and find. The Shawshank tree was really easy to find, actually. A lot of people know where it is. This tree, however, a lot of people do not. Two of my favorite movies, easily. Both of them have a tree that played a pivotal role in the movie for a couple of the scenes. It's almost like the tree is a character of the film. So when I saw each movie, I knew I wanted to go find the tree. All right, I'm in McPhersonville, South Carolina, and this church directly in front of me is the church that was used in the movie Forrest Gump. This would have been the church that Forrest and Lieutenant Dan would have gone to. It's also shown later in the movie when Forrest donates money to have a new, like a large cross placed on the top of the steeple right up there, and they have the equipment out in front. But it's actually a beautiful setting. It's really remote. Everything that you see on the sides of this, as far as the trees and the setting here, is just a very rural, remote setting for this church. It's really beautiful. And I'll just go up and peek in the window, let you see. They show Forrest singing in the choir towards the back of the church up by the altar, and Lieutenant Dan would have been sitting in the back in his wheelchair. And I'll show you best I can through the window what I'm referring to. So this is the inside of the church. So that altar, you can see it directly back, right back here. I know there's a glare. I can't really do anything about that, but those two windows, they're in the back of the church. That's where the choir was singing. Forrest was off to the right. Lieutenant Dan would have been sitting right back here in his wheelchair, right in the back, just watching. But it's a beautiful setting, beautiful church. It actually reminds me, I'm a huge fan of the movie Big Fish, which is filmed in, much of it was filmed throughout the state of Alabama. The set of Spectre, it's the fictitious town of Spectre, was set at, it was a movie set built near Lake Jackson outside of Montgomery. At the very far end of it, there's a church, and it sort of reminds me of this. I mean, it's much different looking, but if you didn't know any better and you came to this church that I'm standing here filming now, you'd almost think that it was built just for the movie. It's just really isolated back here. Very beautiful building and very beautiful setting. But this is the church that was used in the movie Forrest Gump. Okay, so I'm standing here in Beaufort, South Carolina, and this dock that's right out in front of me, or at least what's remaining of the dock, straight out ahead, is the dock that Forrest would have bought his shrimping boat from, and later where Lieutenant Dan would have come to see for himself that he's, Forrest had become a shrimp boat captain. It's also where Forrest would have jumped off the boat when he saw Lieutenant Dan on the dock, and the boat would have crashed into the dock. But this is all that remains of it. You can see some of the footers that are still here, and then of course there's a few planks that are out there, but the dock extends straight out, and you can even see some of the footers that are way up here towards the shore. There's one, there's another, there's another. So that's the dock from the movie Forrest Gump. That's the one that he walks out onto in the movie, and where he buys his shrimping boat from. One other thing I'm going to swing around and show you here. It's kind of hard to see, but right here when Forrest first goes to the dock to buy the boat, you can see this telephone pole that's right here. You can see those two electrical boxes. That still remains from that scene in the movie. But this is the dock from Forrest Gump, Beaufort, South Carolina. This is the dock where Jenny shrimping boat would have crashed into the dock after Lieutenant Dan arrived at the Sea Forest. All right, here's another angle of the dock, Forrest's dock that he crashes into with the boat. It's this is it right here. There's the poles that have been drilled into the ground. The dock would have been right on top of those, and they would extend it out to there. So those footer poles are still pretty visible. Right here's the dock I'm referring to. So it runs right along here as I'm pointing. Another thing you can see in the movie that's very clear is there's a strip of vegetation that extends out into the water right there. That's very clear in that scene of the movie as well. But the dock itself, Forrest's dock right here, that's where the boat crashes into. That's where Lieutenant Dan is waiting for him when he's out on the water. And Forrest's boat would have come from this direction right into the dock right there. Okay, so one more view of where Forrest's dock would have been. I'm actually standing on the bridge that's crossing over this water, but right here, that's the remains of the dock. So that would have been, his boat would have come in at this angle and crashed into it. And that's that strip of vegetation I was talking about from one of the other videos that you can clearly see in it. But this is it. This is where Lieutenant Dan came to meet Forrest, had to see for himself that Forrest was a shrimp boat captain. All right, I'm here in Beaufort, South Carolina, and this house right here in front of me is Bubba's mama's house. So this would have been the house that Forrest came to visit Bubba's mama after he had made his fortune in the shrimp boat business as a shrimp boat captain. Forrest would have walked along the yard here. He would have gone along the side of the house right there. And I'm gonna swing over here and show you. Right over here is where Bubba's grave would have been. There's a particular tree that makes it easy to tell where it is. It's this tree right here. I'm gonna try to zoom in on it. Has a sort of an odd shape and twist to it. The tree right there that I'm pointing to. So Bubba's grave would have been right at the bottom of that, right there in that grass. That's where Forrest would have stood to pay his respects to Bubba when he came to visit him here at his burial, at his grave site here at the at his mama's house. All right, I'm here at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. This is the Center for the Arts, and this building actually stood in for the Gump Medical Center. So this would have been one of the buildings that after Forrest started sharing his wealth, you probably remember in the movie, this sign right here, this said the Gump Medical Center on it. And then there was an ambulance parked right about here, and they were doing like a ribbon cutting ceremony right out in front of the building. That would have been right here. So that's where they filmed it. Just a little thing right here in Beaufort. Just a quick little shot of the medical center is what this stood in for in the movie, right here in Beaufort, South Carolina. Okay, so I'm coming up on the bridge that Forrest runs over. I'm gonna drive through it. When you look in the middle of the bridge as I go over, you're gonna see some metal arches that go over the top of it. That's where the reporters were kind of jogging next to Forrest as he was running over this bridge, and they were interviewing him, asking him why he's running and things of that nature. But we're about to come up on here in just a second. I can't point because I'm driving a vehicle. But right there, what we're about to enter, that's very visible in the movie. Right in the middle of here is where they did that scene. And then we're headed over into the town of Beaufort, which is on the other side. Where the reporters were following after him. You can see the steel arches and the design right out here in the middle. They were kind of running along with them as he was jogging over this bridge. But this is where they filmed that scene. Okay, so I'm on one of the bridges that was used in Forrest Gump. This would have been the bridge that, when Forrest was little, with his magic legs, his leg braces, he would have come running right down along here, this road, and over this bridge. Now, the bridge looks a little different. This guardrail here wasn't there. It was actually just a very small strip of concrete, and you can clearly see the marker on here. It says 2010, so this obviously has been reworked since the movie was filmed. But this is the road that he would have run across. I think there were guys fishing here, if I remember correctly. Can't quite remember. The wall on this bridge was just lower, and they show him go running past. And this is the water that's on that the bridge goes over top of. But this is the one of the scenes for Forrest Gump when Forrest goes running across one of those bridges. I'm here in Barnesville, South Carolina, and this is one of the locations that they used in the movie Forrest Gump when Forrest was little, right after he had broken his leg braces off when he was running from the boys chasing him, throwing rocks. There's a scene where he comes running through this town, and it's easy to tell. He actually comes from around this corner right here, and he runs right down this street. But the reason you can tell that is these buildings on the background, this building here, and there's a house right there, and of course these buildings right across the street. So he makes the turn, comes running down this street, and later in the movie, after Elvis had stayed with him and his mom at their house, Forrest and his mom are shopping one night, and they see Elvis on the TV, and in the background you can see these buildings. You can tell by these two doors and the door in that building there, same intersection. And I also believe this is where he got his foot stuck in that grid, which would be right there. They had like a metal grid on it in the movie, but this is the location of the scene with Forrest when he was little. Okay, so I'm here in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm in the visitor center. There's a museum that's attached to the back of it, and directly here in front of me is the bench that was used in the movie Forrest Gump. This is the bench that was over at Chippewa Square during filming. They since moved it here to this museum. There's a small admission charge to come in here, but this is really the only thing I wanted to see because I'm pressed for time. But they moved it over here, and it's on display here in this museum. Here's a little placard that obviously shows a picture from during production, and then some information about the bench above. And of course, a picture of Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump in the movie sitting on it. And then just a suitcase, a replica type suitcase like the one used in the movie.